Call meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Lawson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances, there will be none tonight. They both have been removed, so we're moving on to unfinished business. Item 1, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-24.
An ordinance approving a 5-year master service and purchasing agreement with Brink Drones, Inc., a Delaware corporation for Brink Ball Safeguard.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Thompson.
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Pryan.
Aye.
McCallum.
Aye.
Davidson.
Yes.
White.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes, motion carries. 2, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-25.
An ordinance authorizing the city to participate in the Missouri Firefighters Critical Illness Trust and Pool.
Present. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan.
Aye.
Davidson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
White.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
McCallum.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes,
Richardson.
Aye.
motion carries. 3, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-29.
An ordinance annexing into the corporate city limits of the city of Belton, Missouri, approximately 103 acres generally located at 4200 Bong Avenue.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes,
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Pryan.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
McCallum.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Thompson.
Yes.
Davidson.
Yes.
motion carries. Did you call me?
Yes, you were first.
I don't remember. Number 4, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-30.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission Service Transportation Block Grant for the Markey Parkway connection with the city of Belton, Missouri, in substantially similar form to the draft agreement included as Exhibit A.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Richardson.
Aye.
Thompson.
Yes.
Pryan.
Aye.
Davidson.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
White.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
McCallum.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes, motion carries. 5, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-31.
An ordinance authorizing the execution of the agreement between the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration and the City of Belton, Missouri to receive a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant for the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan.
Aye.
Davidson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
White.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
McCallum.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes,
Richardson.
Aye.
motion carries. Motion approving the final reading of Bill 2024-32.
An ordinance repealing and replacing Section 19-103 of the Code of Ordinances for the cost share program for sidewalks, curb and gutter, and driveway culverts.
Present. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I want to clarify one more time. This is something that folks would come to us about. This is not something that we inflict on them. Is that correct?
Yes, generally. It could be done as part of a response to a code issue at some point if necessary, but generally it's going to be a resident-driven type of thing.
Okay.
So, all right, let me just, we wouldn't force them to use the cost sharing if we inflict a code on them, right? Like,
No.
they could just take care of it themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anybody else? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yes.
Richardson,
Aye.
Pryan,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Mayor Larky.
Yes. Motion carries. F, new business, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-33.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from R2 two-family residential to R2 PUD two-family residential plan unit development and a preliminary development plan for the development of the view of 11 lot single-family development on .89 more or less acres on the north side of 2nd Street between Herschel and Hackberry Streets.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before this evening is a request for a rezoning and a preliminary development plan for The View, which is a proposed 11-lot single-family development on the north side of 2nd Street between Herschel and Hackberry Streets. The council action report in the packet includes more information regarding the RFP process, the selection process, and the public hearing process, public notice process for this project, as well as a public input provided at both public hearings held by the Planning Commission. The subject property is currently zoned R2, two-family residential, and is requested to be rezoned to R2 PUD, two-family plan unit development. The reason for keeping the R2-based zoning district is to match the other residential blocks in Old Town. In this case, the PUD is more restrictive, requiring single-family on each lot. The purpose of the PUD is to allow a unique residential building type, which requires modifications to lot sizes, widths, and setbacks to accommodate the proposed housing style. Modifications through the PUD are noted in the staff report, with the lot sizes and widths matching the pre-existing plat, which allows 24-foot wide lots. All setbacks can be met for the R2 zoning district, with the exception of a reduction to the 12-foot front setback, which is not out of character for the neighborhood. The applicant has previously requested a modification in lot sizes, widths, and the side setbacks, but increased those to meet the current requirements after the first public hearing. The maximum building coverage is proposed to be increased from 25% to 49%. Much like the front setback, that is not out of character with the neighborhood based on the small lot sizes. Parking requirements have been met, with each single-family house having the minimum 2 parking spaces off-street, which include a driveway and a single-car detached garage. Additional parking is provided through on-street improvements along all 3 public street frontages. As part of the platting process for this development, public improvements are required, which will include street improvements along the frontages of 2nd Street, Herschel, and Hackberry Streets. Improvements include additional paving, curbs, stormwater, sidewalks, and striped parallel parking. This block will be redeveloped in 2 phases. Prior to the completion of the last house, the alley will be required to be repaved. The proposed housing types include 11 single-family houses with a mix of single-story and 2-story elevations in various bungalow styles that are complementary to Old Town. Houses range in size from just under 1,500 square feet up to approximately 1,700 square feet, and each home includes a covered front porch or stoop and a rear patio with a single-car garage accessing the alley. A mid-block green space has been provided, which includes a meandering sidewalk with landscaping, seating, string lights, and a fireplace to create a neighborhood gathering space. Staff believes that the proposed development plan meets the goals of both the 1992 comprehensive plan and the draft goals of the 2050 comprehensive plan that is currently in development by increasing housing diversity and supply in neighborhoods that have access to existing services. The addition of new housing units in Old Town also has numerous economic benefits, including new home ownership opportunities. The proposed plan is appropriately scaled single-family infill in a downtown block that's adjacent to Main Street. This development type also sets a precedent and expectation of infrastructure improvements that can and should be made on other blocks in downtown. These infrastructure improvements will be completed at the developer's expense. This development will have a positive impact on property values, with an approximately $4 million investment being made and adding 11 new households within walking distance to downtown businesses. The individual houses are eligible for the 353 tax abatement program at closing. That incentive is not a financial incentive for the developer. However, it will make the homes more attractive to home buyers. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 7th to review the revised plans, at which there were 10 attendees who spoke. Multiple speakers had concerns with the quality of construction by the applicant in the Tradition subdivision, Multiple speakers were concerned with the widths of the homes, but stated that they liked the architectural styles. A speaker had a concern about the precedent that may be set with this type of housing. A speaker thought that this project would provide much-needed housing, public improvements, and more businesses to Main Street. And another speaker thought that this project would provide the type of housing that home buyers are looking for, and that although it's not a style for everyone, that these houses would sell quickly. It should be noted that staff followed up with both the builder and concerned homeowners and determined that the concerns regarding previous quality of construction was still in compliance with the minimum code requirements. Additionally, approval of this rezoning and redevelopment plan does not set a precedent. The PUD is unique to this block only, and any PUD is reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and staff's recommendation in the City Council's decision may vary based on the proposal, location, and other review criteria in making a decision on any future housing developments of a similar character. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of both the rezoning and the final development plan by a 5-to-1 vote. And staff also recommends approval. A representative of the developers here tonight as well if there are any questions, but I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
So if any developer, any person, say, were to choose to purchase that property as is right now, would they be able to, based on the current plats, be able to put 10 single-family houses there?
They could put 10, there's currently 12 24-foot wide lots. They could put 10, they could develop 10 of those lots based on the setbacks. The 2 end lots would be difficult to develop because they would not, they'd have to get a modification or a variance to the corner side setback. The R2 zoning district has a 20-foot corner side setback, which would be very difficult to meet on a 24-foot wide lot.
So on that same vein of thought there, I understand you talked about it, it's in the report, there's a few other variances, but ultimately kind of seems like it boils down to they're looking to put 11 there instead of 10, because otherwise it would be possible for any person to come in and put 10 in. Is that correct?
Yes, and if you think about it, 10 lots in the middle of the block and 2 30-foot wide side yards would look out of scale. That would look more out of character for the block than if you had those 11 homes spaced more evenly across the block.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Not sure what to say. I still have concerns about making sure of the quality does not match, even though it was minimum over at the other. Minimum is not necessarily quality, and I want to make sure that these have quality, because I still have concerns that the minimum, some of the dangerousness of the other ones haven't been taken care of.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I would like to recommend that if we have quality issues, this isn't the last time this is going to come before this council. This is the rezoning for this, and so essentially whether this developer does it or not, this is the rezoning to allow something similar. There will be another item that we'll have to discuss in new business for the council once we decide to sell, the city decides to sell the land and set up any type of incentives, if there are incentives. That would have to come before council. So the city does own the land right now, so any sale of the land has to be approved by council. So this is not, this doesn't include the sale of the land in this specific item. So if we want to specifically hold a developer or builder's, feet to the fire, so to speak, that would be a very appropriate time to go ahead and do so, because that has nothing to do with the zoning, and the zoning has nothing to do with that, if that makes any sense.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-34.
An ordinance approving an amendment to an agreement approved by ordinance 2021-4654 with Paymentus Corporation for electronic bill payment services for community development customers.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is this you?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Before you this evening is an amended agreement with Paymentus to expand the current online payment system used by utility billing to community development. This extension will allow online payments for licensing, planning, and permitting, and this amendment only modifies Schedule A and doesn't modify the remainder of the contract, which was approved in 2021 for 5 years. The average bill amounts and maximum payment amounts have been increased to accommodate the larger fees for community development. Additionally, customers or users will pay the Paymentus fee assessed per payment rather than the city. If there are no questions or concerns with this request, staff does request a second reading tonight so that this agreement can be executed and Paymentus can begin to, the process of making these adjustments to accommodate the launch of Central Square.
Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2024-34.
An ordinance approving an amendment to an agreement approved by ordinance 2021-4654 with Paymentus Corporation for electronic bill payment services for community development customers.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Davidson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
White, Johnson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. 3, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-35.
An ordinance approving the Belton, Missouri Police Department Municipal Jail 2024 housing contract for inmates of the Grandview, Missouri Police Department.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
This is a continuation of what I talked about last month, that we're redoing the jail housing contracts that haven't been redone in a long time. This is with the Grandview Police Department. They're currently using our facility because they're renovating their city hall and police department. And so you might see them coming and going from the city a lot more than usual. But this is a housing contract for jail prisoners. These would be the ones that are sentenced by their municipal court. And they have been a really good partner with us in other things, especially with mutual aid assistance. And so they are part of the police departments that we serve, Harrisonville PD, Peculiar, and the Raymore PD. And so this is the third contract that we've revised in the last several months.
Any questions? Go ahead.
You answered almost all of them with that little spiel. Thank you. I do have just one, which is, I understand now why, because I know they have a jail, but I understand now why that they would be using ours. Do we typically, because my understanding is the other municipalities do not have a jail, do we, when Grandview gets theirs, back up and running, if you will, do we also have an agreement mutually with them for use of theirs?
Their facility is much smaller than ours. There probably could be some kind of reciprocating help that they would give us if we were full or we were doing renovations to ours. And so this contract handles that, which is sentencing. They've gone to court and now they're going to serve time determined by a judge. And so the booking in and booking out of prisoners or releasing or them paying bond is somewhat covered in this, but this is mostly for the housing off of sentencing.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
And this is just more of a clarification, and I think you've dealt with it previously, but we have we voted on the contract with Belton Regional to provide meals, and this contract provides, again, for 3 meals, but our contract with Belton Regional is for 2. And I think you've explained before that breakfast is provided separately.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and this would be similar to what we did with Peculiar, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2024-36.
An ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 3 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Belton, Missouri, to create the Belton Emergency Management Department.
Present.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? You're up. Oh. Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor and Council, good evening. Before you today for 2024-36 is a kind of a reestablishment of the Emergency Management Department as its standalone department. In recent years, it has been housed underneath the police department, and so the police chief has essentially overseen emergency management in recent years. Before that, it was housed underneath the fire department, and the fire chief oversaw emergency management at that point. There are some benefits, we believe, to having it as a separate standalone department. One, police has its own response, fire has its own response in the case of an emergency, and there is a broader response necessary often in the case of an emergency. So having someone whose position is specifically tied toward coming up with the best practices and coming up with a plan for the city of Belton to follow and have it stand alone, it just makes some sense. Plus, as we're trying to recruit for an emergency management director, having it be a standalone department and a standalone position has a lot of benefits as well, we believe. Emergency management is a specialized field. It's more than just the fire and police response. There's a lot to it, and we think it would be very beneficial for the city to have this as a standalone. And so I'd be glad to stand for any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Guess I just want to go through the thought process on the reporting structure. And I know you and I have previously talked about this, but just, I guess, officially for the record. So,
Sure.
Because originally my thought was, I think that the residents, or at least how the discussions I've had have been around, it probably makes sense to have this emergency management go to somebody that they reelect or potentially not reelect, given the emergency calls that are made. After discussion that we've had, it became clear that even with the reporting structure going through you as a city manager, it still is ultimately the mayor's call for the emergency. Is that correct?
Yeah, the mayor has the duties and right by charter to declare a state of emergency in the city of Belton, and so that's not changing at all.
So, given that part is, ultimately where the power lies in making that, ultimate decision, I think this is the right call, and I think it's a good move for the city. So,
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 5, motion approving resolution 2024-53.
A resolution adopting a city cost share program for sidewalks.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this 2024-53 is concerning the cost share program for sidewalks, curb and gutter, and driveway culverts. Just a few moments ago, you guys approved the second reading of the ordinance that essentially set the table for us to have this resolution. Previously we had the program, and it was in the Code of Ordinances, section 19-103, but it was very hazy in that it referred to a resolution in the code, and the resolution wasn't necessarily what when we were discussing this during the budget process. We thought the program needed some tweaking based on what the previous practice was. And so this resolution essentially is setting, it's very basic, it's very broad, it was intentionally done that way. The hope is that we will tweak the cost share from 50-50 to 80-20, meaning the city would cover 80% of the costs and the property owner would cover 20% of the costs. And that 50-50 cost share hadn't been utilized at all recently. And so between changing the percentages and keeping the guidelines for the program very broad, we're hoping that will perhaps provide the impetus for more residents to take advantage of this program. And so this will give us a good gauge on whether the program has some legs and whether the 80-20 will move the needle. And if we decide, and if it goes really well, we can discuss, what kind of budgeting allocation we would want to do for next year if we decide, if it was very popular. And if it's not popular, we may want to come back and say, well, do we need to fix something else? So we think this is a good middle ground to give us a start.
Can you name a resolution?
Name the resolution?
Yes.
Would you like to name it?
Yes, I think it should be called the Powell Project.
Okay. Well, you want to make the amendment to call it the Powell Project? You're welcome to, I assume.
I believe, I don't know if the resolution needs to be named, but I believe colloquially we could call it the Powell Project, and that could be included on as a note on the website for whenever this becomes effective.
Just to make it easier for citizens to find it.
It's very good.
All right.
Fair enough.
Any other questions?
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. Could I come to the city and say I want sidewalks in my yard, and there are not sidewalks on either side of me? Is that something that the city should do or would think about doing? And
It depends on one, how much you're willing to pay for that and if there's money is available. Two, there are other considerations. If there's no sidewalk at all, chances are there are other issues that are need to be addressed as part of a project to do sidewalks. For instance, stormwater runoff, how are we handling that? And those types of things are part of the bigger picture. And so it's not as easy as just putting in a sidewalk, unfortunately.
yes, I'm well aware of that. Yes, yes.
I know you've
Well aware of
personally
that.
been made well aware of that, I understand that. So yeah, I mean, essentially, we'd have to consider all of that as part of it, and probably would want to try to do a bigger project to include at least a block or a good section of a block, because of the stormwater runoff issues as well. It probably would all need to be addressed at one time. We wouldn't want to just have someone come in
Yeah.
out of the blue and just say, hey, let's do a sidewalk, I'll do the cost share for my part.
And do we have a money amount set, I mean, are we, like, if you have a run on it and 30 people come in and want it, and can we handle that much work this year, or?
Probably not. I believe we budgeted $60,000 this year, is all that's in there, which
Okay.
would probably just be a few projects. I won't say a couple. It would be a handful of projects.
Okay.
Depending on their size and how much needs to be done with, because this does include curb and gutter and culverts and whatnot. So depending on how much work
I would
needs to
think
be
my
done.
yard would take care of the 60.
Honestly, it probably would.
It probably would,
probably
yeah.
would.
Okay,
You
just was
can't,
curious.
you can't participate.
Pardon me?
You can't participate.
It's just hypothetical.
Do we have any data on historically how many people have taken advantage of this program, or if there have been any spikes in interest, because this has been on the books for a while?
We didn't even have it budgeted for a while because nobody was utilizing it, and so they pulled the money out of the budget. And so even though the program existed, we weren't even taking applications, not that there were any to be taken. And so I don't know that, since I couldn't tell you in the first few years if there was folks that took advantage of it. I know it hasn't been taken advantage of in quite a while, a number of years.
Anecdotally, I've heard it has been used before.
It's possible,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
The previous iteration of this, you guys might recall, is before the city public works staff would do the labor, and that was the 50-50 cost share, was that the property owner would pay for the materials, and the city would do the labor and actually place the sidewalks themselves, that the staff of the city would. And now our public works department has programmed itself to try and take care of services enough to the point where we don't have enough available staff to do that same type of methodology anymore, so we would have to contract it out now. And I believe ever since that's happened, I don't believe that the project, or that this has been utilized.
That brings up another question. So if a resident found someone to do it and then submitted receipts for reimbursement at 80/20, would we do that? Or do we have to use a contractor the city chooses?
I think that because there are so many other factors, we would want to make sure that we're at least involved in the planning and the design of whatever it was. I don't want to say no or yes to that, because that's a hypothetical that we just haven't been.
Could be a capacity issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're ensuring quality is done here, especially since 80% of the money is going to be taxpayer money. And we also want to make sure that, again, we don't create or any unintended consequences when it comes to storm runoff or any of those types of things.
Are we advertising this?
Not yet.
I know, but are we going to advertise
We can
this?
advertise it, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that it has a name, it'll be easy
Go ahead.
with the naming.
So as you mentioned, we have this including gutters, curbs, and culverts, driveway culverts. Was that in the 50/50 program, previous program, were those included?
I believe, yes, essentially. We just want to make sure that we call it out so people know exactly what it is, because driveways specifically, we had a question about would driveways be part of that, driveways themselves or not. It's just the culverts for the driveway.
So, and then, okay, so thank you. That's where I'm going with this next piece is I think I think it would behoove us to put in some definitions into this, as to, like you're describing, right? We're only gonna repair the culvert, which is under the driveway, not necessarily the driveway. That's part of the cost share program, those types of things. It's not spelled out currently. And then the other thought I had is you could easily have a culvert be 40, 50 feet onto a property owner, onto a property, the drainage ditch is further up or for whatever reason, and technically that's a culvert and it's nowhere near a city easement, right? So I think it would be a good idea to have some definitions included. I don't know if I need to make an amendment for that or not.
I would say at this point, so when you guys do not define terms in an ordinance or resolution, instead we just refer to Webster's dictionary. And so for the terms that are currently used, it's sidewalk, curb, and or driveway culvert. It's my opinion that Webster's dictionary definitions of those three terms gets us to where we need to go. In the hypothetical that somehow a driveway culvert is not within an easement, then we will not be working on it, because working on it would violate the Missouri Constitution's prohibition on spending public funds for a private purpose, because that's not on public property. The reason why we're spending money on driveway culverts that are in our right-of-way is because ultimately they are on city property, so that could create liability, and again, they are part of the public domain at that point. Same thing with sidewalks and curbs.
So from a legal standpoint, I completely understand. I agree with what you're saying. I'm just thinking from my standpoint as just a nobody reading through this program, trying to understand what it covers and what it doesn't. I don't know if I completely understand that, which leaves me with a lot of questions. Of course, I can call City Hall, but if I'm already taking the time to read through it to try to understand it, that means I've got enough impetus there to, try to, not have to call City Hall.
Councilmember McCollum, I think based on at least this limited discussion, the one that seems to be the confusion is the driveway culvert. So I think if there would be an amendment to the purpose section of Resolution R 2024-53 Exhibit A, to amend that section to read sidewalk, curb, and or driveway culvert located within the public right-of-way.
Okay. I like that already.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
One reason we're purposely vague in some of this description and the guidelines is because we're trying. I mean, the vaguer it is, the more we can fit projects into the scope. And nobody's utilized this in recent years. We're trying to entice people to utilize it. I think I'd rather us, if we end up having issues where we're struggling to parse out this money and we're having to try and split hairs on, well, what is and what isn't, well, then at that point we can come back and say, okay, this is such a successful program, but we need some more rigid definitions and guidelines. My only concern is, and I'm not saying this specific is going to cause any problems, but is the more guidelines and restrictions we put in place, the less leeway you're giving staff to try and get projects done. And we're trying to be, we want people to take advantage of this program. And so we'd like to have a little bit of leeway to say, okay, that can fit into these guidelines, so to speak. Does that make any sense?
It does make perfect sense. Ironically, before this even was on the agenda, I had a resident reach out to me and ask about what was covered under the 50/50, and specifically talking about a culvert as well as a, adjacent to a road driveway, which it's not a curb there, but I don't know what it falls under category. But anyways, my point is, I guess, even that, left some questions that I wasn't even sure of the answer to. And Greg thankfully answered me. But even then it left me going, well, wait a second, is this covered now or what? So I guess my point is, like, I'm just trying to make it so we can look back on it when it's not all 9 of us up here, being able to answer questions, or anyone out here, right? So
the more broad you keep it, the more leeway you're giving staff to say, okay, maybe we can work with these folks to try and get this project done. and utilize the funds that are available.
All right.
Hold on a minute. So you were going to make a motion to amend.
Councilmember McCollum did not make that motion.
I did not make that motion.
Okay, I'm just
The
making sure.
motion was just, I just stated it
Making
if
sure
you
we're
would
clear.
like
I'm just
to
making
make
sure we're
that
clear.
motion.
All right, go ahead.
So do you also have the process laid out by which citizens could utilize this program?
Yeah, there's traditionally been an application process. We can utilize a similar application process. We don't have to invent the wheel.
I just didn't know if that was what you were planning or not. Okay.
Anybody else? Question I had was based on that is, say tomorrow morning you're gonna get 10 of these, how are we gonna put them in order? How are we gonna prioritize them? Blah, blah, blah. Do you have that thought down?
I hope we have that problem.
I mean, are we gonna do first come, first serve, or are we gonna?
That's basically how we've done all sorts of requests, is always first come, first serve.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm just making sure. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Six, motion approving resolution 2024-54.
A resolution approving the purchase of a half-ton pickup truck to replace the current fire chief vehicle in the amount not to exceed $65,000.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. You're up.
It's a pretty standard budget approval, but I wrote the resolution a little bit vague, so I wanted to give some background on it and make sure you all didn't have any questions about it before we move forward. The bigger vehicles that we buy, still kind of standard. It's easy to find a cooperative bid or to get very official bids. Passenger vehicles, since COVID, has still been a little bit harder, and there are no passenger vehicles like what we want on state bids. And so we've been looking. I don't anticipate this purchase. Everything I've been looking at, it's been in the $47,000 to $51,000, but they're selling quick. And so every time I find one, I'm like, okay, we're going to get it approved. So that's why it was vague, and it has that not to exceed to make sure that we didn't have anything else that we need to add on as we purchase it. So we'll still be getting 3 bids from 3, reputable dealerships in the area, and then making that purchase as quick as possible before they sell it and move it out from under us. So happy to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
Is it hard to find 3 reputable dealers?
I don't think I'll go into that definition.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Hey, I abstained. Just want to point that out.
All right, did you get that? All right. All right, consent agenda. One motion non-available to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Number 6, please.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, motion approving resolution 2024-59.
A resolution authorizing the city of Belton, Missouri, through its police department to renew the software subscription with OmniGo software.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. You're up or you're up? You want to go first, since you pulled it?
Yeah. So since this was, I saw we had already approved this in the budget. So as the only reason it's coming for city council is because we're approving a contract.
It's a renewal, yes, and it has a contract with it.
Any notable changes in the contract?
There's none.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Go ahead.
OmniGo has been the platform that we've had for a number of years. It covers the CAD system for police and fire. It also covers the jail intake of prisoners and jail housing, and it also covers the law enforcement reporting system. And so this is different than what the ESB is working on in regards to a newer CAD system and a law enforcement management system. And so, but this is continuing what we currently have.
That is just to get us to the new one, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're up.
Just wanted to say we've been through the farmer's market, and that looks like it's going very well.
Oops, I pushed the off button. A couple things. So I will give an update for the TDD board. It met. It was a very short meeting. Discussed kind of just talked about the ongoing construction projects, and then the only other thing was confirmed the board member changes, which was mainly just adding me as a board member. Public Works open house was a lot of fun. Spent way more time there than I had anticipated at all, but it was a really great event, so I just want to give a shout out there. And it was pretty neat seeing all the different things, and I surprisingly, they let me, play with and move around the remote controlled lawnmower, so that was kind of neat. So just want to give that shout out. It was a really good event. And then I just want to take a second to acknowledge Councilmember Lawson. And all the great parks updates you've given us, and I just want to say I will try my best to follow in your footsteps. And the last thing is I just hope everybody had some time and got to take some time to reflect and enjoy Memorial Day. So
I'm going to go into a little bit of what probably Allison's going to bring up, but I know we got Carry Nation Days up here on Main Street, Friday, Saturday, car show Sunday. Should be a fun time. There's a lot of stuff going on, so. Sorry, Allison.
No, that's great. Patty, thanks for shouting out the farmer's market. Alex, I agree. The Public Works open house is like a can't miss. It's actually really fun and neat, and you learn a lot, and I spent a lot of time in the sign shop. That was really cool. And thank you for the kind words. Yeah, Chris, there's a ton going on this weekend. I'll outline a few more if anybody's watching. The vendors open up on Friday. There's a Belton High School Alumni Night, the Miss Belton Contest. The high school jazz band will be performing. And then the Rock Gods close it out Friday. There's a 5K, vendors again, balloon art, tractor pull, mascot madness, hometown heroes challenge, foam party, a couple more musical acts, and then the drone show. And closing out Sunday, my personal favorite, the cruise night. So hopefully folks are excited about this new iteration of summer fun in Belton. And I hope a lot of people turn out. Thanks. Oh, wait, one more thing. The outdoor pool and water park opened this last weekend, and that is a big parks update. So thanks, sorry.
She could have my time because we were off last week. Thanks, Matt.
Just looking forward to all the activities this weekend.
I too went to Public Works and had a great time, and I wasn't there very long, but I got to see the single-phase lift that had the dump truck up in the air, and that was really, really fun. So, and I got to meet one of your mechanics and then talk to his dog that he had in the car, so it was fun. Thanks for having that. I'm hearing a lot of moaning and groaning about our growing pains and Mullins Road. I'm hearing a lot of moaning and groaning, and I just keep on saying that this is just, we're growing. So you guys have to be able to live through this. But I'm still learning a lot. I haven't been to the farmer's market yet, but I hear the pool is open. I actually hear it at my house. So yes, good work.
We are in the midst of still trying to plan another Ward 4 meeting. We just haven't finalized details yet, so that will be coming. And I'll end with that. I could go a lot longer, but. Yeah, I'm old. I can't remember now.
I don't have much, just hope we don't have as the rain they're saying this weekend, so we can enjoy this weekend. So hope everybody gets out and enjoys it. So that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to bring up to everybody that Mr. Mayor, Mike Eakey, who's off this week, and myself went to ICSC last week, and that was in Las Vegas, and it's a recruitment conference, and We met with different restaurants, we met with daycare providers, mental health providers, developers, recruitment consultants for economic development. So it was a pretty productive few days spent out there, and I anticipate we'll get some stuff out of that like we did last year. So I'm looking forward to that. That's all I've got.
All right, items for review and discussion. Item 1, Christmas lights.
Yeah, I just wanted to have this conversation with council and make sure I get an understanding of what the motivations are from our elected officials, and want to make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward. There is a proposal on the that has been made that couple private groups, whether it's downtown Belton Main Street or BCPI or some combination of the two, is looking at the possibility of purchasing Christmas lights for the downtown. They've asked that we would be responsible for putting those lights up. I have said that's a possibility, and I want to make sure that we are all on the same page before we move forward with too much on that. Let's just put it that way. So if there's any consternation or thoughts that I would need to consider, that we should consider, I'd love to hear any feedback on that. As you know, downtown Belton Main Street had done the lights in the past few years, and they decided they did not want to do that again this year, in the way that they'd done it before, where they had contracted with somebody to come put the lights up and take them down, and that's not taking place this year. So this would be in that stead. So appreciate any feedback.
Anybody got any questions? Go ahead.
So I know you guys were talking about Public Works putting these lights up, possibly, that there's a possibility. But I know we're just talking about the sidewalk cost share, and Public Works does not have time to do that. How are they going to have time to put lights up?
I think there's a possibility that if we did do that, if we did take responsibility for putting them up, we would have to look into contracting out that service.
So Public Works is probably out on this discussion.
I don't know that for certain, but I'm just saying that's a possibility that they would be out.
Go ahead.
Yeah, similar line of thought or question, I guess, is what's it going to cost us, right? Like from a manpower issue or whatever, right? I guess I'd like to understand that before I would be able to say, like, yeah, let's go for it. That being said, I'm a big proponent and big fan of those lights on Main Street, and just about anything we do in terms of decorating or promoting festivals or whatever for Main Street. I know that's a big economic driver. I know it's going to help bring more businesses in. It's going to all around be good for the city. But I got to imagine there's also some way to make profit off of that, right? So that people are benefiting. By people, I mean businesses are benefiting from it. So I don't know if taxpayer money or how much taxpayer money should be spent on it. But that being said, like, I am a proponent, so I'd like to understand costs, and maybe, we have a stopgap measure till we can find a better solution. I think it needs to happen.
Obviously, cost would be a driver behind some of this stuff. I completely understand that, and before we move forward on an actual deal, we'd have to figure out how much that's going to cost the city. That's a fair expectation for you guys. It's one that I have of my own. It is not unusual and unreasonable for cities to do this type of thing. I know other cities have done the lights on their own, purchased it on their own, put them up on their own. It's just not unprecedented. Let's put it that way. So.
Go ahead.
Have we shared any data from Placer AI with DBMSI about traffic on Main Street during the holiday lights time or when we've got programming on Main Street? Because I feel like there's an opportunity to collaborate and, show them the results of this and see if that changes what level of investment they're interested in making.
I think that would be easily done. That has not taken place, to answer your question.
Okay, I think that's a great jumping off point for collaboration, but ultimately our Main Street looks really pretty dressed up, and it would be a shame to see that stop, because there are available resources to get it done, but maybe there is a long-term strategy or ownership of this because Placer AI backs up that this is a worthwhile investment. So.
Fair enough.
Anybody else? I had a.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll wait. Go ahead.
Oh, I think that's a really good idea on the Placer AI. I know I've gotten 3 bids from 3 different companies. I know one company does Lee Summit's lights. The cheapest bid I got, and this was just putting lights on the buildings and on the light poles and the mayor's Christmas tree, nothing else. And the cheapest bid was $45,000, and the company that does Lee Summit was $80,000. So they're kind of all over the board, but it's not a cheap thing to do. So plus you got to have insurance for getting up on these buildings in case something happens. You know, there's a lot more cost into it than just hanging Christmas lights like a lot of people think. It's just a cheap thing. It's not. So, but I do like the Placer AI.
Do you have anything else? Go ahead.
To continue on my path of, hey, it's important, and, you know, what Allison said reminded me of it. I actually had some people from out of state visit this weekend, and they loved the downtown. It made them, you know, like Main Street, like that was like one of the highlights. So I just can't, I know it's very important, and I think we need to support it. I'm just thinking costs.
I guess my question is, when we have these people come, they bring their own lights, right? I'm asking this. They bring their own lights and put lights up. Mm-hmm. So rather than us having a tangle of lights every year like I do at my house, they bring the lights to the party, correct? So if they were purchased and then we ended up putting them up, that involves a lot of additional maintenance. Is that not correct? Trying to maintain these lights to put them up every year.
Yes. I mean, if that's depending on who owns the lights and what kind of agreement's made on who's responsible for maintaining, switching out bulbs, those types of things. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was thinking, I mean, it used to be that the lights were already here and the city always put them up. It was just the last 3 years when we went with a private company and spent, well, I'm not sure the amount, but I know it was over $200,000 for those 3 years. So, I mean, I kind of like the idea of going back to the way it was. I mean, it was pretty then. I mean,
And just to clarify, when you say we spent $200,000, DBMSI paid for it, not the city. Yeah, just a point of clarification.
Anybody else? If you do, you can go. I had a meeting several months ago with the president of DBMSI, and we were looking at scheduling the mayor's Christmas tree lights and tree and all that. And he told me that the Main Street merchants are not going to do Christmas lights this year. And I asked why, and I never got a straight answer. So I'm still puzzled by that. And so, you know, I don't think that the city should have our city employees crawling around in these buildings putting these lights up. I mean, that's where I'm at. So just with that, knowing that they made a decision and didn't come to us, now they're coming to us and wanting us to do it. So, you know, I'm a little against that. So that's where I'm at with it. So. Anybody else? Hearing none. Item 2, Highway 58 and Kentucky Road.
Andrea is passing out pictures of this. So at 58 Highway and Kentucky.
I was thinking that one ago.
You'll remember that several years ago. And when I say several years ago, I want to make it clear that it predates my employment at Raymore. Raymore came over and visited the city of Belton and made a proposal about their little pork chop island that they made up where Westgate and Kentucky come together. And that's where Kentucky splits off and goes into Raymore. And so they made their proposal. Belton made a kind of proposal of keeping the straight lane going straight. And Raymore went ahead and built it because all the construction was in the city of Raymore. At that time, they had talked about, in the future, we need an island that goes basically from Westgate all the way eventually to I-49. And this is one piece of the island that they are wanting to build. So the island that they're looking at constructing is in between Dean and Westgate. And so portion of it is in the city of Belton, or most of it is in the city of Raymore. But they came up and they have 3 options that they propose to build these islands. So if you look at the first one, the one that's on the screen, is a island where people can actually still turn left into the shopping center to the south and turn up Kentucky, but you can't turn out of the subdivision, out of the where the shops are at, and you can't make a left off of Kentucky. This option does allow a hole in the island, and if you know drivers, wherever there's a hole and there's a chance and there's an opportunity, provides a chance for someone to cut through and actually cut off Kentucky. So this island configuration I could not recommend to you. The second one is a modification of it. Interestingly enough, this modification only allows traffic to go into the shops into Raymore, but does not allow for any turns to go into Belton. So, as you'd imagine, I wouldn't recommend that either to you. So that just leaves the third option, which is a continuous curb island that would prevent turns from Kentucky or from the shopping center side, and would just provide a left turn onto Westgate to head north, or to turn westbound to head south onto Dean. Now it does block one entrance currently. I believe it's O'Reilly that sits right there, the auto parts store. Is that AutoZone?
AutoZone.
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 Advance. Okay, I hit them all. So everybody gets free advertising. There's an auto parts store there that right now, if you try to get out and make a left turn, you're not making it anyways. It's very difficult to turn out of there. And so they're proposing this island that would go across and allow people to turn onto Dean and turn onto Westgate. And I would recommend that to you, but I'm open to hear any ideas that you have to bring back to the city of Raymore, and let them know what you think of this, positive and or negative.
Go ahead, sorry.
I must have been asleep, because, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing it?
Because Raymore wants to?
Well, it's also MoDOT, because there's an accident problem at that intersection. So when the signals were planned out, they spaced them out. So there's a signal at Dean and a signal at Westgate, but there would never be a signal in the middle because it's too close. It would not operate properly. And so in order to get the traffic flow to go up and down 58 better, they recommend putting islands, restricting left turns, so people would move through the area better and only allow people to turn at the traffic signals.
I don't want to be sarcastic, so I'll try to be quiet. Just, we have long distances between our stoplights, but
Go ahead.
I've used that intersection multiple times. I've lived over in that area 20-some years, and that's a very dangerous intersection. So sealing that off where you cannot make a turn, I'm plenty good with. I think that's the best option. That's a very dangerous intersection, so.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, I thought you did.
What
I just know.
cost? Is this all Raymore?
Correct. They're paying for this.
Okay. And then I just want you to know that I really I appreciated that pork chop reference. I've always called it the Raymore Triangle, so I might change
whatever you wanna call
it
it.
to pork chop now.
Anybody else?
I guess,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Oh.
Having a hard time visualizing it because currently there's a center turn lane. So that would go away and there would be a thin concrete island between Westgate and Dean. So no one's turning left.
Correct.
Okay. Great. Sounds good.
You sure? You weren't too confident
I
about
mean,
that.
turning left on 58 anywhere is not my favorite.
You'll just be turning at the light, you know,
Yeah.
instead of.
Yeah, just use the traffic signals. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, there's plenty of entrances and exits for all the shopping in that stretch. And I try to go to a light anyway, so.
So they're also going to be making another change. And I don't know if this, I don't want to sway you or give you too much information, but going down Dean, they will be eliminating the 2 Walmart entrances and consolidating into one entrance in the middle that lines up with the entrance across the street and putting a traffic signal in there so people can enter and exit to the shopping center to both sides without those lefts and having a hard time getting in and out. So that's going to improve traffic flow in this whole area.
You say they're taking it down to one entrance on Walmart on Dean?
I believe that's what, I haven't seen the plans myself, but that's the impression that they're giving me.
Probably where you turn into Sam's Club or Walmart. I'm sure that's where they're
Right.
probably put the light.
On the east side, they're going to put the light right there.
Are there any incoming high-traffic food establishments that this plan accommodates?
Really, no. This was, like I said, this was actually comes from when they first met about 7 years ago.
Considering that, is this a good plan for that?
Yeah, I mean, it'll accommodate it just fine.
Okay.
Actually, it'll limit access to that spot that you're thinking of right there on Kentucky and 58. Now the access, you're going to go all the way around rather than having a direct access turn lane, which is what you have now. I'm not saying that's the safest way it is now. I mean, there's a reason that they're pushing for this. This is a lot safer model for our residents and Raymore's residents. But yes, technically, this would, if you were the restaurateur and you were wanting to put in something there, this would actually be a negative. It wouldn't be a positive. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Anybody else? Question, and this has to do with our 2 parcels that we own, or that are in the city, not that we own. The Advanced Auto Parts and then the oil change place. If you're wanting to come out of the Advanced Auto Parts and go east on 58, how are you doing that?
You're going to have to go to Dean and make a U-turn.
Is that going to be allowed? Why would we put a median and then allow U-turns? Doesn't that seem like a...
U-turns are pretty, I mean, when you go to an island system and have islands all the way up and down, that's a pretty normal thing to allow U-turns at the intersections, to allow people to get back to the other side.
Okay.
But you can go out their side entrance and go around Clint Drive and go to the light.
And they're connected, the oil change and the auto parts store are connected, so they could go out to Clint. Do they know that traffic's gonna come that way? I'm just curious, that's all. All right, that's all I got. Anybody else?
I just agree with you that we should do that 3rd one.
Okay, I will let them know that.
Is everybody okay with the 3rd one? All right. That's it on that. We have no reason to go into executive session now, so I would entertain a motion.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call. I want to do a roll call today. All in favor?
Aye.